Here in the Open Bid Roundtable, Thomas Hayes, Great Hill Capital Chairman and Managing Member, Michelle Schneider, MarketGauge.com Chief Strategist, and Brooke DePalma is here in the house. Good to see you all. Brooke, I'm going to start with you. It's a little bit of a random Friday here. You heard what I said on that data for the restaurant industry. Like, this is really yet another sign you and I have been talking about all week long. Signs that the consumer is really starting to come under pressure from these gas prices. The stock market may not care about it, but maybe they should be caring about it.
Brian, also don't forget that this winter has been marked as one of the worst that we've seen in years. So many franchise operators that I spoke with said that those winter storms that we got really took a toll on consumers coming out to spend, even though we heard from Walmart that they were willing to online shop and deliver more. But definitely all these different factors, higher energy prices, the fear that they're going to pay more at the pump. And on top of that, too, just seeking out, okay, where am I going to budget this month, definitely has taken a toll on consumer spending. But similar to what we heard from Bank of America, consumers are still going out, similar to Walmart. They're going out for electronics. They're buying on restaurants, and they're also buying on clothes as well. And so consumers are really still picky and choosy, similar to what we heard last year. And it seems like that's continuing into 2026.
Tom, all week long, it's good to see you as always, my friend. All week long, I've heard so much optimism. Various Wall Street firms coming out, maintaining their S&P 500 targets, outlooks for strong double-digit earnings growth. I even had Nora Robini, a.k.a. Dr. Doom, the economist, on my show, and he sounded upbeat. Where can you hit me with a little bearishness? I mean, there are concerns out there.
There's no question there are concerns, but what people say and what people do are two different things. And what we saw last week was record put buying. If you look at put skew, the amount of people that were buying insurance on a house that was already on fire was unlimited. I mean, we have to go back to the lows in 2022 and then the lows in COVID. And what happens when everyone buys insurance after the house is on fire? I'll give you one guess. They don't get paid out, okay? The people who get paid out are the dealers who sold them all that insurance. So what does that imply from a technical standpoint for the market? It implies one of two things. Number one, you grind sideways, and all the people that bought that put protection after the correction wind up with nothing at the end of expiry. Or two, which is usually the case when everyone gets short in the hole. We saw record selling volume on Friday, which was the lows, which we're retesting today, is that you get a rip your face off rally, okay? And if you look at the underlying economy, whether it's earnings growth, okay, we're expected to have 12% earnings growth in Q1. We're still expected to have 15% earnings growth in 2027. Now, if this goes on for many, many, many more weeks or a few months, those estimates are going to come down. But while all this has been happening, Brian, estimates continue to go up because the underlying economy is still strong. And as it relates to energy, people's base case is this is a short-term shock. If you look back to the Obama administration, the economy recovered very nicely with $90 to $100 oil. I don't think we're going to have persistently high oil. So as that comes down, that's going to help consumer sentiment, et cetera. But to Brooke's point, yeah, in the short term, consumer sentiment is weak. We see all the sentiment numbers, and they're going to need to absolutely turn that around if President Trump and his party want to have any strength in the election. They're going to have to pay attention to that, and that's why the reports of him wanting to end this thing quickly are probably very accurate.
Michelle, good to see you as always. Also, yesterday's session was awful. I mean, it was just a terrible session really across the board. Anything you're seeing, I know you watch a lot of technical indicators, anything you're seeing that would suggest that we will get that rip your face off rally that Tom mentioned?
Well, really, to put context on both what Brooke and Tom said, if you look at the chart, what is so interesting is the consumer, and I like to look at XRT as my ETF because of its blend of staples and discretionary, has broken down. It's under the 50-week moving average. It's under the 200-day moving average. And it looks like any rally that it's had so far has been met with extreme selling. On the flip side, the Russell 2000 is above the 200-day moving average and also above the 50-week. So is transportation, which is really, I think, the most interesting because, of course, you would think that that would be the most impacted by these rising energy prices. So we're in this kind of war between what's happening in the manufacturing sector of the U.S. and the small caps versus what's happening with the consumer. And I really think, as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, it's hard to make any any commitment until that resolves. Will the shorts be right? To Tom's point about the put buyers, well, obviously, if IWM breaks down, I think they'll have their day in the sun. However, if it doesn't, then that will drag everything up with it. And of course, that's your rip your face off rally.
Michelle, let me stay with you here because we saw a really large drawdown yesterday in Facebook or Meta. I mean, $100 billion in market cap, totally up in smoke. Stock plunged, not seeing really a lot of buying here today. What do you think that chart says, and what has to happen for Meta to regain some of those moving averages?
Well, first of all, this is the third time we've seen this massive crash over the last decade with Meta. 2018, it happened. 2022, it happened again when earnings missed. And there was a lot of scandals going on about just faith in its programming. And now, of course, here we are in 2026 with its major legal problems. So, trying to buy a falling knife obviously would not make any sense. But it does look like it has one chance if it holds the 2025 lows, which is around 480 to 500. We're not that far away. And we get some kind of a buying coming in at that point with a good accumulation day off the lows, then maybe the worst of it is over. I mean, one thing we cannot dismiss is Mark Zuckerberg has been incredibly experimental. Obviously, with Metaverse, it didn't work out so great, but he is really made a lot of money, put a lot of money into AI, and I wouldn't necessarily dismiss him forever.
Yeah, Metaverse was real trash. I mean, they just wasted a lot of money on that. But I think we got some Polymarket odds here. Polymarket trying to figure out what may or may not happen to Meta stock. You can see some of the predictions there on the screen. Brooke, let me go over to you here because we did see the sell-off in Meta, but it's really in the context of a broader sell-off in all things Mag 7. This has not been a good week for these 7 stocks.
Certainly not a good week for Mag 7. And also when you take into consideration that trial and that lawsuit, you also have to look at Google as well. And despite what we saw this week with the sell-off, we are still seeing or hearing some optimism on the street when it comes to Google, even though today it's still down about 1.7% as we make our way into today's trading session. Laura Martin started saying that despite the odds of this case, it's sort of not over until it's officially over. She also went on to say that the amount of users that are actually under the age of 18 only make up a small percent of YouTube. But when you think about at large just how many people are on the platform and how much revenue that Google relies on YouTube for, it could have broader implications, and or it might just be a minor blimp given that younger user base is not as prominent as maybe older user bases that this lawsuit did not apply to. But on top of that too, you can't help but think about another name within that same sort of sector that has largely been compared to it, and that's Netflix. And Netflix this week also announced that they were going to raise prices for consumers. And so there's so many different puts and takes that I feel like investors are trying to understand and digest right now as we make our way into the year. But certainly Google having some moat here to move past this.
Tom, I think part of the sell-off in Meta reflects, of course, that the jury ruling, but I think a lot of people use that news to go back and crunch numbers on Meta, and they realized, or they remembered, that they're spending billions and billions of dollars on CapEx, and this could be a year of margin pressure for this company. Are you a buyer of Meta here on the pullback?
No, not a buyer here. And I do think tech, and believe it or not, I think software is probably due for a knee-jerk bounce. But to your point, CapEx as a percentage of operating cash flow is exceeding 90% this year for Mag 7. So, until we start to see a return on invested capital for those investments, which is probably a year and a half, 2 years off, I think any relief rally is going to be sold, and institutions are going to, particularly in software, if we get a violent relief rally, I think institutions that were trapped, that didn't see it coming, are going to use that to get out. And I think you're going to be able to find tech and software at much better prices probably later in the year, fall time frame before the election. So you got to watch that. You got to watch that CapEx. You got to watch the return on invested capital. And I don't think we're going to get those answers in 2026. I think we're going to start to see some positive green shoots in 2027 for those.
Michelle, what are one of your favorite charts in the market right now you're watching, and why are you watching it?
Well, outside of energy, or are we including energy?
Whatever you want. We got options. We can oscillators. Toss them at me. Whatever you got.
Well, obviously, we have to look at oil and gas first. And I think we need to put that subject to bed because we got to get through $100 a barrel in order to see higher oil prices at this point. Again, price dictating the narrative. It stops short of 100 several times. And I'm looking not at Brent. Obviously, I'm looking at WTI. And then with natural gas, I'm so perplexed by that. So I really believe that this hold that it's had around 280, 290, now it's back over $3, is probably a good buy opportunity for many reasons we don't get into. But if we go outside of the energy space, the trickle effect, of course, would be food prices. And if we're looking at something like DBA, which is a good aggregate of a lot of soft commodities and agricultural commodities, that's had a pretty major breakout. So really what you have to ask yourself right now is at what point does all of this food rising, fertilizer rising, energy rising, does that stop? And then you have all these great opportunities on things that have been really, really cheap. I mean, we're looking at things, believe it or not, I still love the vanity trade. And now we may have a really good opportunity to get back into some of the stocks related to that if things calm down. Novo Nordisk, they just had an FDA approval on insulin, by the way. Looking at even Ulta Beauty, that stock was at 700. Now it's getting close to 500. That seems to me like even if we go recession, it's probably a good trade. So yeah, I think you got to watch the food, the energy, and before we get too excited about anything, see what happens there.
Yeah, I'm glad you called out Ulta. I just had a great conversation with Ulta CEO Keisha Steelman. Podcast is coming soon, but I think what they're doing in terms of product innovation and the speed in which they can move is absolutely mind-blowing. Brooke, last word to you. One of those restaurant stocks that are still doing well, believe it or not, during the sell-off, it's Restaurant Brands, parent company of Burger King. I'm surprised because Burger King is, look, it ain't my fave, but I know they had that viral ad. I get it, sort of.
I mean, Burger King has been innovating. It's been building out. It's been ramping up. A new leadership there is sort of trying to push the momentum forward to get consumers back in the door. And so I'm not too surprised to hear that. I feel like in this sort of environment, we hear a lot about consumers turning to value, even though they have been pulling back a bit. But not surprised, too surprised to hear that, but definitely interesting. I mean, there's no chicken sandwich that's going to boost Popeyes like it did a few years ago. So we'll have to keep a lookout for that. But Burger King CEO did have a good video to push back a little bit and have some fun with us. Well, McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczinski.
Full disclosure, just not a Whopper guy, and I will never be one. Big thanks to the opening bid roundtable. Good to see you all. Have a wonderful weekend. All right, for more Polymarket odds, you can scan the QR code on your screen to go to the Yahoo Finance Prediction Markets Hub, powered by